Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. So this film is supposed to come out last year. The world fell apart. Finally, it finds its home in 2021 with Labor Day weekend, which I think really helped this hit that next stretch mark where it's able to actually get a lot of money now because it's the perfect weekend to launch a big thing like this. And I was super excited for Shang-Chi when it was announced just because I always liked the idea of this character being established as his own thing. He could easily become the sideline thing where he's like the guy that jumps from franchise to franchise. But Shang-Chi has the potential to lead his own stuff, and I think this movie, more than any other one in the MCU, kind of proves that stylized fiction really works for genre fiction. And by that I mean superhero is a genre. It's become a genre on itself. It's become like a Western. It's become like a science fiction thing. And within that genre, you can find the subgenre of all this other stuff, like the heist movie, like the fantasy movie. This, to me, is the martial arts movie, and it looks spectacular. I've been somebody who's kind of been down on a lot of the CG and a lot of these more updated Marvel stuff because it feels rushed, it feels lazy, it feels like we are using the same studio house to tell these stories, so nothing looks distinctive or original. But Shang-Chi manages to capture its own originality, and I think a lot of that has to do with the camera work. I'm not going to say the CG looks better than anything else. I think it looks on par with some of the best and some of the worst of the Marvel stuff, but the camera work itself, I think, is what elevates this to something above a lot of other movies. It is so classical, it is so sweeping, it just looks like... And this has to be an inspiration. It just feels and looks a lot like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, where it's just these long epic shots, the sweeping back and forth, just these stoic movements and these beautiful frames. It has the elegance of a classic kung fu movie while still maintaining what makes it a Marvel property, which is a really cool balance of the two worlds. It's rare to see that you can capture both aesthetics perfectly because, look, I think if it leaned more into the kung fu martial arts, that genre, the Chinese, Japanese, that style of filmmaking, you could get something a little more unique from it. But using those two tones of the Marvel and the kung fu, it made something completely cool. So the action, some of the best looking stuff in any of these movies, it's all in frame, it's all in focus, it's long continuous takes, and it is just so unique in how it presents itself because it's just using the surrounding areas to your advantage. It's not a bunch of people punching or doing flips or anything. It's using your jacket, using these planks on the side of these buildings, doing all this stuff with the urban jungle around you to make it this unique experience, and it just adds so much to that. The fighting was so good. It looks clean, it looks amazing, and I think just it shows you the distinctness that we can see between these franchises because you compare this action to that of Black Widow, and Black Widow is the slow espionage overhead shot where everything's kind of drawn out and intense close quarters, and this is just we're running on the side of buildings, sweeping at you, throwing these wind powers and these big rings and everything, and it looks really good, and it feels really good, and it's just super impressive. So let's talk about Simu Liu because he has been, I think, one of the biggest champions of this property since before it was even announced. That famous tweet of him asking to do it, it's come out, and he's a great guy, and I think he crushed it. He really just found the right tone for Shang-Chi. Now, I think there are moments where you see okay, this is pretty easy. You're doing the sarcastic comment, you're doing the calm stuff. And at moments I was oh, is he gonna completely fall into this role and understand it right away? It takes him a minute, but eventually, and especially in the later half of the movie, he falls into line. Just some of those intense moments where he's yelling at his father, it's great. He does a really good job of portraying that emotion and that feeling, and he's gonna be the next big thing. This guy, I mean, he's probably going to do a bunch more stuff with Marvel, but I imagine Simu is going to get a lot more offers for some really cool stuff right now, bigger action franchises, the side character and other pieces. I've said it before, put him a short round and make a new Indiana Jones thing, because that's what he should do. He's one of those guys that just understands the action hero trope, but is able to do different stuff with it that makes it work. And just the fact that he plays in both genre of superhero and kung fu, it makes it better. The stunts in here are great. Again, it goes back to he's doing a lot of his own stunts in here, and you can tell because it looks really good. Now, another thing I really liked about this film was it didn't try to sugarcoat the fact that it is steeped in Asian mythology or Chinese mythology. They speak English scarcely throughout the film. It's not always, in dubbed, but they use it the right amount where I'm like, okay, the opening sequence, these sequences here, you don't have to have it in English. We get more impact if it's in the native language that's trying to represent. It adds a lot more to that style because of it. And I think it balances out really good. Now, some people who might not be, big into the subtitled stuff could take offense to it as be like, really? Why didn't they just speak English in these scenes? But you just have to see like the context of the story. That's where the emotion comes in, having it in this language, having it in this style. It looks and feels really cool and adds something else to that. I know some people aren't big on Awkwafina. I've been a champion of her work for a long time. I think she is funny. I think she is a very talented actress. And she does a lot in this I wasn't expecting. Like, she honestly played it straight more often than I thought. Of course, she did her classic Awkwafina tropes, but she played it straight. Like, she actually just did some dramatic acting that I wasn't expecting, but of course you should expect it if you've seen The Farewell. Like, this woman knows how to tell story and like act. She's actually an actress, and that's very impressive to see from her. I loved her a lot. The actress that played Ziling, I can't remember her name, but she was great. She just understood what she was doing in that world and that trope, and it looked really good. I loved her fight scenes. She was probably one of the best fighters of the bunch, including Simu, so that was really cool. But Tony Leung, I mean, Marvel has a history of some interesting bad guys. There's some that are, boring. There's some that are great. I think this is one of their most complex ones ever, because with Wenwu, you get something that's not true evil. It's just more like building up a reputation in a sense. We don't actively see him doing these bad things. We know that the world he's part of is bad, but he's complex in the way he's going about his world, and it makes for a fantastic character study. And somebody that is, I think he's as equal a character in this to that of Shang-Chi. Like, that father and son dynamic is one of the cornerstones of this entire operation of this film. And it's just like having those two compete against each other and play off each other. You get a really cool dynamic that's almost rare to see in this genre, where you're getting, I know some people compared it to like a Shakespearean tragedy or like a Shakespearean drama. I wouldn't go that far, just because I think it's more or less, and this might be a weird analogy, it kind of reminds me of a Kurosawa film in that way, where it's just like we have these beautiful shots of this gorgeous world, but the interplay between our main family dynamic is what we're here to see. We're seeing the way Simu and Tony play off each other, the way Wenwu and Shang-Chi act towards each other, and you have Ziling in here doing her stuff. Like, that is what makes this film and makes it feel really cool. I really like his villain, like the way the 10 rings are used. And I know there's some controversy that they're not accurate to what we've seen, in the comics. It looks better for like, a cinematic feel than having it be like these little dainty things on his fingers that turn him invisible and teleport him. But there's like these weird, powerful rings that are just on his wrists. And this is a really small detail, but something that really stuck with me in this film is the way that when he's just sitting casually and he has the rings on, the way that the rings just like clatter and click against each other. That was probably one of my favorite things. I don't know why I like that so much, but it just felt like these are real things that are on his wrists. They're clicking and clapping against each other, and it sounds authentic. And then when they just get them like blasting off his wrists and doing these weird power-ups and having him do all this stuff, it looks really cool. The CG for that looks really cool. I was very impressed with that. And I think just seeing like him in like the opening montage, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but like the opening, I'd say 15 minutes of this movie are really good. Just him in that fight scene at the beginning with Le Chen, it is amazing. Like, that was just beautiful. And that is where I'm like, this is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. These sweeping shots, these beautiful landscapes. The score is phenomenal. It just sounds incredibly well done. It's very like Black Panther, and it's representing a certain style of culture, and that's what we're hearing presented in the music. And of course, there is some beautiful stuff with like actual songs in here too. Hotel California. And I believe on the soundtrack for this film too, Simu released a song, didn't he? I know he's kind of a singer. I think he released a song. I don't remember if it was in the movie or not, but he did release a song, which was pretty cool to hear. I mean, like, that's awesome. That's why I'm like, Simu's going to be built up to be a big star after this, because he's doing it all. He's committed to the project, he's committed to the role, and he's willing to have fun with it. That's everything you need for this stuff. The acting was great, the cinematography was great, the score was great, the costumes are phenomenal, the design pieces are phenomenal. And when it comes to like the third act, because all of these movies kind of have like this third act structure, I think it's some of the best we've seen, because it stays in like that familiar genre that we've seen before from all these films, the good and the bad fighting, but it just takes it up a notch in a different direction where it's like, it's mystical, it's magical, it's intense, and this just beautiful shots with these interesting creatures and designs and concepts, and just the way everything comes together in the end is just like this beautiful piece that I wasn't expecting to look as good as it did. And this is where I'm like, the CG could easily fall apart in these moments, but they made it work. And I think that's one of the most impressive things that this film did, was it took some basic CGI, mixed it in with these great colors and effects and lighting, and turned it into something that looks like a pastel painting. It's gorgeous to look at. And that's something that I think also strips it apart from other stuff in the genre, and that's just, this looks like a painting. It's like watching like classic artwork come to life in front of you, as compared to just, you know, like standard punchy. It's really cool, and it looks gorgeous, and everything about this worked in a way I wasn't expecting. Because it stands on its own, it's a really intense family dynamic, you see like the drama and the tragedy that comes from all of these figures, a really interesting villain that takes interesting chances and does some weird stuff with his powers and his world, a very charismatic lead in Simu Liu, and he's doing some great stuff there, Awkwafina is doing some great stuff there, there's a really cool storyline of their friendship that I enjoy seeing. Everything about this works, and it does connect to the larger Marvel universe, which is going to make some people happy. Post-credit scenes are great. They work really well for establishing the larger world. I think this film works on a bunch of levels and is very impressive to see what it did. Is it perfect? No, but it's one of the closest Marvel has gotten to capturing that perfect masterpiece image that bends the genre in a different way and does some unique stuff in it. It's very beautiful, it's very gorgeous, and some of the coolest action Marvel has ever put on screen. It is just amazing the way that it worked together, and just having it be a really large opening weekend box office just shows that stylized storytelling in the comic book genre can succeed and will succeed if you let it grow in the right way. I'm very impressed with Shang-Chi. It's one of the best stuff Marvel's made in a long time, and definitely one a lot of people should check out, because whatever you're expecting from this, if you're expecting, oh, it's going to be Bruce Lee, it's got Bruce Lee in there, but it's also got, you know, some Ang Lee stuff, it's got some larger stuff, some Shaolin Prince stuff. There's so much going on in here you're not expecting, and it's in the world of the Marvel Universe. So this film is really good. Check it out. So Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, I am going to give an 8 out of 10. Now, thank you guys for watching this review. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, and I will catch you in the next one. Have fun, stay safe, good luck.